All right. Okay, here we are. Good morning, everybody. Uh, Here we are back after a week or two, I think. And today we are going to talk about 3 steps to self leadership. And Pete is going to run us through those things. And um, as always, anyone who's listening live, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments. Um, and anyone who's watching later, if you have any questions or want us to talk on something else, then let us know. So go ahead, take it away, Pete.
Yeah. So I think of, and I was trying to figure this out over the past week or two of like, what's one of the biggest things I like to do? And I like people to become their own self leaders, right? It's one where I always tell people, I'm like, if you have to come see me year after year after year, I'm probably not doing my job correctly because I want people to be able to lead themselves in their own really transformation. And it got me thinking, I was talking to a few of my clients who are kind of, whether it's in the nursing world and police and fire and EMS, and they're all burnt out, right? With everything going on in the world and just career wise and not enough staff, they're all burnt out, right? Or not all of them. I'd say 50, 60%, right? A good amount of them are burnt out. And what I took from all of those people is, well, they're not engaging in the right behaviors to be in a good space for their own wellness, right? Emotionally, physically, mentally, right? They're just going out there just to survive and letting all that take realistically a back seat. And that's one of the most dangerous things we can do because then we start getting sick and even just resentful and we hate work. Even if it's a job we love, we'll end up hating it just because we're not taking care of ourselves, right? And that's where I really started thinking about that self-leadership that they need to take on themselves. Because when they see me, or maybe you or another coach, right, hypnotist, they see them for an hour a week. That's not a lot of time to create every transformation in the world. The person has to become their own self leader in this way. And so thinking about it, working over my mind, it reminded me of, I can't remember. I know he was a Harvard psychologist. I think it was David Vago, something like that. Where that was one of his big things when he was practicing. And he had it narrowed down to really 3 things. And I find these 3 things to be very important. So the first one he always talked about was having that self-awareness. And the way I relate that is the self-awareness to go, oh, here's my edge, right? How do we tell the difference between the edge of the forest and the road, right? There has to be a defining edge. A lot of us, we blur that edge, right? It's overgrown. Maybe the trees or plants are growing into the street, right? It becomes a blurred edge. But we need to know where that edge is so we know what we need to do once we hit it, right? That takes just that ability to be self-aware of that edge, right? So whether it's work, where's the edge of work where you need to go, hey, I have to take that step back before I get hurt. In a relationship, where's that moment where you go, I got to take that step back before I say or do something I don't mean. Where in, times to ourselves, when is a time for ourselves and a time to be with someone else, where's that edge? And so really, if you can think of an area in your life where you're like, Pete, like I'm just exhausted in it, where's that edge? It could be behind you because you already went past it because it was so blurred. But it's a good awareness to go, okay, let me move back. If it's further ahead, you get to go, let me push a little bit further. Who knows, right? But after you're aware of where that edge is, it becomes time to self-regulate, right? So this, a lot of us try to do when we're emotionally high, right? We try and go in the middle of the argument with our spouse or significant other. We go, oh, here's what I'm going to do, right? And it's said out of anger. It's said out of frustration. It's something we don't even mean. So we have to recognize that when we're going to self-regulate, we need to be in a calm place. We need to be able to make the conscious choices that are ultimately going to give us more energy. That's going to give us more ability to go, whether it's closer to the edge or further away from the edge, right? If we're trying to learn a new skill, we definitely want to get past the edge, right? Think of it that way as well. Like sometimes we do want to go over, but we have to begin to regulate what we're doing. But we can't do it out of an emotional state or a high emotional state, I should say. It needs to be out of that calm state, that moment where we get to kind of take that step back and go, if I continue on this path, will it actually be healthy for me? And that is a hard decision, I think, for a lot of people, because they go, well, I've done that my entire life, right? These are habits that have been with me since childhood. It's like, yep, but maybe it's time to let them go, you know? But if you're not willing to let them go, that comes a problem of it's going to just hit that edge and you're going to just be in the same position over and over and over. You have to be willing to let them go. Because only when you make that conscious effort long enough, that's when it goes into the third step of self-transcendence, right? Where it becomes an unconscious thing. But that takes time, right? That is when we are in flow and things are just going naturally. But it doesn't happen overnight, right? But we have to know where our edge is. We have to go, okay, what do I do when I get to my edge? What do I do to change where the edge is, right? Maybe it's, again, if we're growing, we need to have that edge grow out, right? If we're learning a new skill, it needs to grow out. But if we go, man, I'm overwhelmed, and we hit that edge, we need to do that, to know that that's when we got to move backwards. We got to take that break for ourselves, you know? And I find once we can start doing those three things, that's when we kind of take control of our life in a new way, in a powerful way. Because then, you know, I find ourselves, we're now creating the edges versus the edges just appearing out of nowhere. You know?
That actually, that's great. And it reminds me of something else that I was talking with a couple people about the other day, where it seems like it correlates. So I was talking to someone who was having overwhelming anxiety, and I was explaining the tactic that I've used for myself and clients, you know, where you can kind of put an anchor in and, you know, make, you know, get your body and mind in a habit of, when this feeling happens, it's then this will happen. When X happens, now my body recognizes it and Y will happen instead. And when I was talking to them, I was asking what happens right before you start to feel this overwhelm. And the person didn't know. And so when you were talking, I'm thinking that's the edge. And so I think sometimes there are times where someone just knows the horrible feeling, the feeling that's unmanageable or wants to be changed, but they haven't even paid attention to what happens before that. And so that's kind of that self-awareness, I think, and that investigation. You know, that's a moment to be your own self-leader instead of, you know, looking for a therapist or a pill, or, you know, just total breakdown because you can't handle it. It's like, what happened right before this thing that's uncomfortable? And if you don't know it, you can get self-aware and look for that edge, you know, whether it's metaphorical or it's really physical. You know, for me, it's very physical. Like I will start to feel something bubbling up in my body, and that's uncomfortable. I'm like, and relax. Because there's no way to tell yourself relax when you're like already in it. But that edge is just like a really potent indicator. And I didn't fully realize that someone could not know what happens before. I thought that's so interesting.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was one where I was talking to one of my clients probably 3-4 days ago. And we were just talking about how when we make different changes, sometimes the change is as simple as choosing a different route going to or from work, you know, versus it could be something big like, you know, setting an alarm for 3 hours earlier, right? The edges can be very small. And it was one where I was talking about the edge with them. And for them, it was just taking a different way home because they realized on the old path that they took, certain urges, certain thoughts, certain feelings would appear at very specific times. Now, they weren't aware of it before. They were like, I don't know why I get upset when I go to work. I don't know why I get angry in this moment. And it wasn't until I was like, take some time to become aware of what you're thinking of in that moment. As you know it's coming, become self-aware. And it was, man, they were like, Pete, like these thoughts of whether it's their childhood friends, some of them were their children, some of them were their anger that they had towards certain people. And it was just certain moments on their drive as if they were linked to specific buildings, as if they were linked to specific road signs, you know. And when they started going just a different way, they felt none of that, you know. And that is just sometimes the power of going, hey, that's the edge right there, right? That is a physical path. That is an edge. But if we go a different way, none of that stuff that's on there is on this new path, you know.
And that's the thing is, you know, really just the self-awareness. So there's so many ways to look within, which is what we are always talking about, you know, whether you're, you know, just trying to make yourself better through, you know, various tactics and ways, or like very specifically in hypnosis, you know, or meditation. I mean, there's so many ways, but it seems like always one of the doors you have to go through is self-awareness. I was curious if you could talk more about self-regulation. That one, I understand in theory, but, and then also I was hoping before the end of today, if you could maybe bring us and the viewers that we have right now and for later, through a little experimentation of what it might look like to do this.
So self-regulation is just a conscious thoughts we have to know if we're getting too close, if we need to push it or back away from it, right? So like, let's say we're trying to, let's say, learn a new language, right? That is a time we want to push the edge out, right? We want to have it grow. That's when maybe we're learning Spanish and we can't roll our R's and we get frustrated, right? The self-regulation part is going, okay, I'm going to take a step back. All right. So if I'm going to really practice rolling my R's, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Let me really practice just X, Y, and Z to really get used to that, right? If it's, you know, maybe speaking in sentences in another language, it's not the moment where we go, man, I'm getting super frustrated because I just don't get it. I just getting angry because I can't figure out this one sentence. It's going, all right, I got to take that step back. Whew, all right, calm. Let me go back in now, right? And you'll do it better because you're not doing it out of that anger, out of that emotion, that high emotional response. You're going back in that calm way to push it out further and further. Now, let's say it's the reverse where we're burnt out at work, right? There's so much going on and we're just overwhelmed. People are calling out all the time. And we're being forced to do hours of overtime. right? And we go, man, I'm just physically drained. I'm exhausted. That's our edge saying, hey, maybe we can't do all this overtime. Hey, maybe we need a day to ourselves. Hey, maybe we got to take a self-care day for us. And so when we get to that edge and we feel all this stuff, one is being aware of, well, is it work? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it something else, right? Because maybe work isn't the problem. It's the combination of it all. And maybe we don't have to cut out work, but that means we're going to cut out family or friends or whatever the other thing is, right? The hobbies. But then we look at it and go, wow, like if I were to self-regulate, what would I take out? Maybe it is the work, right? Maybe I don't need to do 80 hours of overtime. I can do 20 hours, right? Or no overtime, right? But we have to be willing to do that to go, all right, so maybe I have to give up my hobby for a month so I can get really proficient at this, and then I can bring my hobby back in, right? We have to be willing to let go of something either temporarily or permanently for something else to grow and then work it back in once things work out. But that's a very conscious thing of going, I have to take a step back. I notice this is the problem. I notice this is where I got to regulate myself. You know, and for a lot of us, I see it all the time where we go, Pete, like I got to work that overtime. I barely get by with that overtime. It's like, yeah, I get that. But what will happen if you don't take just a day off, lose, 8 hours of overtime, and you get really sick, and then you miss out on a week worth of overtime? Which is going to be worse for you, right? Obviously missing the week. And so sometimes we still have to go. And I'm a firm believer that our bills will always get paid. We always find a way. And sometimes we need to put ourselves first to make sure that happens. Because I know I've experienced it myself, where I would push myself hard doing 80, 100 hours a week and then being sick for like 2 weeks and then having to go back 13 steps when really all I needed to do was just to take a day to myself to go, I'm going to do nothing today. Okay, I'm back at it. And I felt good, but it's hard in the moment to always, again, when we're in that high emotion of, I need these hours to pay my bills. That's a high emotion. We're not going to think clearly. We have to go, okay, let me get calm. So if I miss one day, that's better than me missing 14 days.
Yeah.
Let me take that day.
Yeah. Well, I love, becoming your own self-leader, I think there's so many layers of what that could mean for somebody, whether that's being an entrepreneur or, just really getting back to your own life, getting healthy, having a happier life, so many of the things that we go through, becoming your own self-leader. And I think these are really great tips, that self-awareness and maybe finding out, like paying attention to, if you might be like, well, I know I get anxious. And when I think about this happens. It's like I was mentioning, maybe there's another way of looking, like what happens right before that, like the subtle thing, so that you can self-lead yourself, so that you can bring yourself in and around it through paying attention to some other things, so that you can then figure out what you need to step back in and to self-care, or to just step back for a moment and take some breaths, that you can get back to it. And then the self-transcendence, is that just once you've attained it?
Pretty much. That's when the unconscious mind has really absorbed it and we get to be in flow, right?
Oh, so then the self-transcendence is the flow, which everyone who knows that feeling loves it. And I just want to add that when you do get to self-transcendence, to really praise yourself. That seems like a really important aspect of our growth and our healing, to like not just like keep going and dismiss it, but to really validate, I was in one place, I did this thing and this other thing, and I got there, and good job, and I've done it, and I can do it again. And just let yourself really, like your psyche and everything, get used to the fact that when I put my energy and my attention and my awareness into this thing and I take these steps, this thing happened this time. And so now it'll be easier for it to happen again and again. And that seems like a really important thing. Well, we're at our 20 minutes, but is there a little more time to just bring us and the viewers through a little something as a practice?
Yeah, I say the best things we can do is to take ourselves out of the situation. So one of my favorite, like say NLP techniques is positioning, perception, something or other. Name really becomes irrelevant. But I like it because it kind of separates everything out, right? Where you go into it, you remember a moment. Like if everyone just can think of a moment where maybe they felt angry, right? Think of a moment where you just felt angry and just begin to notice what was going on, like what you were seeing through your eyes in that moment, the thoughts going through your head, the people around you, the things being said or the things you heard or the sounds, the smells, right? Remembering that moment. And then as if there's a security camera in the corner that's just recording it all. So you imagine if you could all of a sudden zoom out and become that security camera, looking down on the situation from that different viewpoint, how it's usually higher at an angle looking down. And replay that whole moment again. But notice what's changed. How maybe you get to see both yourselves acting, how both of you or everyone involved is standing, the arm movements, the other things around you that may enhance this feeling of anger. So maybe you get to notice just different things as they come and go. Maybe it's the way they pointed their finger at you, or maybe it's the way they held themselves. See, maybe you felt really small because maybe they were towering over you. But you get to notice it from an impartial movement. See, a camera has no emotions. It has no allegiances. It has nothing. It just records as it sees it. And maybe you get to begin to realize where the anger started to stem from. So you get to play it back and start it over. And start it over and over and over. Each time just learning something different. Each time noticing, oh, that little movement right there, that's where the anger started to come in. And what was going on all around it as that anger was starting to come in. Because maybe then you get to go back into your mind and here's the thoughts in that moment. See through your eyes in that moment of where that anger really came from. And you just become more aware. Because maybe it's the regulation of saying something that would have changed the course of the rest of the conversation, the rest of the interaction. Maybe it was changing your body so it became more relaxed in that moment. You just begin to see things differently, of how to handle it differently, how to see it differently, how to perceive it differently. To create that change in both of you, through yourself, first. And as you begin to notice that, and when you notice it, you get to come on back, maybe with a smile on your face, because you learned something, became more aware. It was just that one moment. Here we go.
Very nice. I like that. It's always, at first, it's easier to be led by someone that you enjoy doing, but eventually, as the people who are listening, like as you practice more and more, you start listening as training wheels for as long as you need. And then at some point, you can just start to do it for yourself and just explore in those different ways. So,
Yeah.
well,
I will say one last thing is when you do it, there's no wrong way. There's just a learning way. Right? Like everything in life, we're not going to be perfect at it the first time. Right? Especially when we do it by ourselves. But there is no wrong way to do it by yourself. It's just practice. Practice and then making it so you get to go, oh, this doesn't work for me, but when I did it like this, it worked perfectly. And knowing that's perfect. That's the way it should be. Because we're not all uniform. We're all not one size fits all. Sometimes it is that little thing. Maybe instead of a security camera, it's a fly on the wall. That's okay. It still works.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pete, and for everyone who showed up today and anyone who's listening later. And as always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on any of the social media platforms. And we'll be here next week. And until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Ciao.
Bye.